now we're actually streaming. We've been streaming for a minute, so I'm sure people are having a good time. But what we want to talk, we got Ethan and Justin with us today, and we're wanting to talk about Jiu-Jitsu and the benefits for mental health that you can get from Jiu-Jitsu. I know everybody is, during COVID, there's been a lot of lockdowns, and whether or not people can get into train or not. And just in the United States, we've seen a huge increase of mental health issues, whether it be depression or people just not being able to go back to normal life, and that causes depression. Suicide rates are up. Just in general, overall mental health has been kind of for everybody, I think, has been kind of hard to deal with. And so that's what we're coming today. And I don't know, who wants to start us off? How important Jiu-Jitsu is for your mental health, and how it is, whether some of us changed our life or whatever. So.
Well, yeah, Gary, that's a good point, and thanks for bringing us back on topic. Let's do this. Let's talk about. Let's say, here's my thought. Let's take in a couple different sections, right? Mental health is a big opportunity, but let's first talk about COVID, right? So let's talk about, because this will be the easiest thing, because I think everybody can relate, and that way we can kind of stay on topic. So let's share some stories about that. So first of all, what happened around, I'm going to guess it was March, right?
Mm-hmm.
When did they shut down? So that's when COVID happened. But did they shut down gyms in March? Obviously, I should know, I own the gym, but I know we opened back on May 18th. I can remember that day like it was yesterday. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing we're probably shut down from end of March or April to May. Does that sound right, guys?
Yeah, it was about the end of March.
A couple months. A lot of gyms were down for, like, I remember that's when I started lifting weights. Was at home.
Yeah. So that's a good point. So let's think about that. So that was when, I think, for all of us, that's when the first time we can kind of put a finger on when we all started talking about mental health. Because before that, we just worked out, and even if you knew it was good for you, made you feel better, I don't think we ever really like, hey, like we need this. But I think COVID really broke, it reminded us or even woke us up of why we need this in our life, right? Because when we didn't have this, for example, it's kind of cliche now and it's a joke, right? In a way, but everybody's day drinking or doing stuff like that, right? Drinking all day. And I will tell you that, yeah, exactly. And a lot of it didn't stop. I'm drinking right now, right? And Justin is, and didn't stop. But here's the thing to think about. Like, remember, I want you guys, and other people won't remember this, but you, especially Ethan and Justin will, but do you guys remember the first time we did kind of like a happy hour, right? We did a Zoom meeting, and we had like, let's say 20 people on there, maybe more.
I watched it. I wasn't in it, but I watched it.
I mean, we were on there. This is why I got a Zoom account.
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to be like 45 minutes and ended up being on there for like 6 hours.
6 hours, I remember. Yeah, it was up to like 1 a.m.
Was that when Nate like just kept going?
That's when, yes, that's when his brother drug him off, and then he's like, sorry guys, Nate's preoccupied. Nate started puking up blood and stuff like that. It was a little crazy. But that's when we realized, it was like, I know it dawned on me at that point that we are missing, it's going to sound kind of weird, but we were missing that connection that we all have each other. And we kind of joke about it. And I don't mind joking about it because it's funny, but like we always said, like I miss, having men in between my legs and do so. Like it's a joke, but it's like, that's not the part we miss. And that's what somebody that doesn't do jiu-jitsu would say. And that's why I say it, because that's what my wife says. Like she'll walk, like while we're doing jiu-jitsu, she'll walk through and you're like, you guys are so gay. Like, cause she just doesn't understand it. Right. And so jokingly, I said, that's what we're missing, but it's not. I think what we're missing is, one, that the workout thing that releases endorphins and gets us moving and kind of, and helps everything. But also, we were missing the human connection of our friends. Right. We don't think about it.
Really, I don't go out much. I don't even go out with you guys that much. That's the only social thing that I do, pretty much. I work, and then I go to the gym, I hang out with you guys, and I pretty much don't really hang out with anybody else after that. Just you guys at the gym for the most part.
Well, absolutely. And the other thing is, it is one of the few places where especially now, if you go online, you've got Republicans, you got Democrats, you got whatever, and everybody's arguing to the death, right? Like, and we have guys at our gym, we can name them without naming them, right? Yeah. That are on whatever side they're on, and every day is a post about this person's an idiot and blah, blah, blah. But once we get into the gym, all of that goes away, because it doesn't matter if that same person's rolling with a Republican or if that same person is rolling with this or that. Like, nobody cares. And it's not as serious as people act online, because nobody in real life, most people don't care. Like they might be like, I voted for Trump or Biden, but they don't really care. It's like, we're online, it's like, I'm gonna kick you're a piece of whatever because you like this, right? And I also think that's what it's missing, because then people started getting into online where they were just obsessed with that stuff. And they were just,
it's like they have nothing else to do. Right.
Yeah, so they were like hook, line, sinker with QAnon, or they're hook, line, sinker with Trump or not Trump, but then when, you know, I mean, and I think that was the great equalizer that we all missed, right? It was just getting in it is a form of meditation. Like when Justin or Ethan or Gary's beating me up or vice versa, it's like, I'm just worried about getting beat up. You know what I'm saying? I'm
kind of going to like a weird blank zone. I'm not even thinking anything. Like, I was like, what move were you thinking of next? Nothing.
Yes.
I'm just like,
well, and so just on that point, we had that talk tonight, and it was because I was listening to one of the Joe Rogan podcasts today that had zero to do with jiu-jitsu. It was Alex Honnold podcast about mountain climbing or whatever. Some reason they just got lost on a little tiny snippet, but it was like, he said, hey, Eddie Bravo is my instructor. He's talking to Joe Rogan, and he said he talks about how when we tie your shoes, you don't think about it, right? You just reach down and you do it. But there's movement involved with tying your shoes. But we do it every day, and we drill it so much, you just tie your shoes. There's no thought. And he's saying that's what we want to make, or Eddie Bravo's thing is why he does those pathways and all those drills, is so that jiu-jitsu gets to like, it's like tying your shoe. You just do it. You don't even know why you're doing it. It's autopilot. And that's what they start talking about, because they're comparing, like he was saying, when he climbs those rocks and those high mountains, he's in a zone. He's not even thinking. He's just doing it. He's loving it. And that's what they were saying. He's like, that's how I am with, jiu-jitsu, as I'm in a meditative state. I'm not thinking, I'm just flowing. It's like tying your shoes. There's a hand-eye connection there that I know my brain knows that there's a sequence. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. But I don't think about it. It just happens. I don't even have to look. And that's what jiu-jitsu is to us. We zone out and we don't think about it. That's the thing. I don't know if you guys meditate. I don't. I've read a bunch of books. I want to, but I do think, and I still want to, but I do think jiu-jitsu is our meditation, right? We zone out and focus on stuff, and not always. Like there's also times that we're working on stuff, and that's not meditation. That's actually very frustrating, I think.
I feel like I can sit down and like, I probably bore some of my drilling partners, because I'm like, let's get in this one position and learn everything about it for the next hour. And they're like, what? I want to roll. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, to get back on topic, excuse me. We lost that for those couple of months. Right. And so we were forced to we didn't ever have that time where we zoned out and got lost in our thoughts and meditate, like essentially meditated. But so we were stuck with our thoughts, and we're stuck with the nonsense and the anxiety of the pandemic, of not working out, what's going to happen next. And I think, well, obviously the suicide rates are up, not obviously in our gym or anything like that, but there's think about it. I mean, that's our thing, right? I will tell from myself, I don't have any other hobbies. And as working out goes, I lift a little bit of weights. There was a time that was my thing, but now it's not, right? Like I've gotten hurt so much that my thing really, my working out is jiu-jitsu. And if I don't have that,
I only started lifting for jiu-jitsu, right? Like I don't care if it's like, oh man, I got to get that 15th ab on my belly. I don't care about any of that. I only lift to be better at jiu-jitsu, right? Like that's it.
Yeah.
No, it's a good point. And I think I've made that comment a bunch of times, is that's why I think jiu-jitsu, like I've heard some great interviews with Jean-Jacques Machado, some of the old guys that really motivate me when I hear them, but that's the point. Like Jean-Jacques Machado runs and does stuff because of his jiu-jitsu, right? And that was my thing. Like when I'm really into jiu-jitsu, I party less. I do more so because I'm like, hey, I got jiu-jitsu tomorrow. If I drink tonight and I feel like shit, my buddies here are gonna kick my ass, and it's not gonna be good rolling. I'm gonna be pissed, right? So then I party less, I work out more, and then I'm like, hey man, I was tired yesterday, so I need to run more. Or I went with Bowman, and he was like moving my arm wherever I wanted to. I need to lift some more weights, right? I mean, it's like everything is involved in that, which makes my life better. And like to bring Ethan in this, not to pick you out, Ethan, but
no, you're fine.
this is what I was thinking. Like because you're lifting a bunch of weights now, and you're doing stuff. I don't know if it's because of jiu-jitsu, but I can see the change in you since I met you from a timid guy that came to jiu-jitsu because you listened to some Jocko podcasts, right?
Yeah,
exactly. And then you're a whole entirely different person, right? You're now you lift weights. You're in shape. You're just arguably a better person. I mean, you're mentally probably still the same person, but I just think it's amazing to see the difference. And same with Justin. I've known Justin since he was a skinny, dorky kid from right? Like way back.
Nobody remembers that. Maybe you and Wes were there.
I remember because that's when I think people used to. It was either you or Jason Hall. They would make fun of like toe hold. Like,
that was Jason. Yeah.
Whatever it was, because they'd be like, "What?" He said, "I said toe hold" or something like that. It's like I remember those. Yeah, so like, I remember all that. So it's cool, and the same with me. I mean, I was 330 pounds at one time, and if it wasn't for jiu-jitsu, I wouldn't be the same person, right? Like, it brings us out of our shell, makes us a better person. But anyway, we lost that in COVID. So, how did you guys cope? Or I mean, it was only we got lucky in West Virginia.
Yeah,
it was only a short period of time, and I will also be honest, even though this is the thing. A lot of you guys trained in private, and there's nothing wrong with that because it's like we weren't in a group setting, and I wasn't holding class. The gym was closed, but you guys still trained in private and did your own thing. Some of you did, right? We were 100% closed, but I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There's people that were in there with their friends or their family or their brother, their sister. I mean, they were working out and doing their thing. So some people got lucky and didn't really miss a whole bunch, but I definitely did because I also feel like I had to lead by example. Gary, I'm probably sure the same. Is that I've got to toe the line, and if I want other people to say, I got to lead by example. And I was like, hey, Lisa and I have talked about we got to shut the gym down. We got to do. I didn't want to. I wanted to be the same guy on TV that was doing my own thing, but also I want to support, my city, my town, and I want to do the right thing for the people, right? I mean, anyway.
Yeah, well, I am curious, Ethan. So, like, as far as like when the shutdown came for you, how did you feel? As far as like, did it affect your mental health? Tell me what you went through as far as like struggling, like, hey, now what do I do? Because I was there, and I don't know how often you train, but a lot of times I'm training now. I train 6 days a week.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how often you were there, but what were you doing in lieu of COVID?
Yeah. So, kind of going back, like, so I got really lucky. Before COVID happened, I was practically training like 7 days a week. Like I was like addicted to it, like a drug. But luckily, before COVID happened, I watched a video. I think his name's like Jiu-Jitsu on YouTube.
Chewy.
He made a good point about how like a lot of people do rely on jiu-jitsu for their mental health and their physical health, but it shouldn't be relied on as a crutch. Like, because a lot of people do jiu-jitsu to help alleviate a lot of their problems with life. But when you leave the gym, like those problems are still going to be there. You have to eventually deal with those problems. And the way I look at from my perspective, jiu-jitsu gave me the tools to help me with life's challenges, but it was up to me to use those tools outside the gym, if that makes sense. So when COVID happened, and I can touch on this later, like before I started jiu-jitsu, I was a pretty isolated person to begin with. Like I stayed in my room all the time. Didn't really do much. Didn't really have much going for me. So like when COVID happened, I kind of knew how to deal with this isolation already, so I knew like mentally I'd be fine. Like I picked up running with John Marshall because I was getting ready for an ultra marathon at the time, a 50K. So I'd wake up, I'd go outside and run out in the woods for about 2 hours, come back, do my work, and then in the evening times when we couldn't go to the gym, I would either relax or go for another run or pick up another hobby. I picked up lock picking, of all things.
All right.
But
we're not laughing with you.
No, you definitely. I'm gonna come up with a new name for you, like
okay,
Two Hands Ethan or something.
Two Hands Ethan.
Yeah.
But yeah, when COVID happened, like I did miss the social aspect, obviously, because being I'd consider myself more so an introvert than extrovert, but I did miss the camaraderie, hanging out with the guys. So doing like the Zoom thing, like the 6-hour Zoom thing, was awesome. It was a ton of fun. Even I think like that first Zoom one, I probably just said like maybe 3 words the whole time. I just sat there, I just enjoyed it. But yeah, to sum it all, yeah, COVID, I did all right. I could manage mentally.
It's funny you said you're an introvert. I am an extrovert. I love being around people. Love going out, hanging out with people, whether it be at jiu-jitsu or outside of jiu-jitsu. But I've known other people who are introverts as well, and they've told me they didn't realize how much they like people.
Yeah.
Like it's like usually they stay home. Usually they're used to this. They're like, we was prepared for COVID because we get to stay home, and then they found out like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's not what's
I really. Yeah, I didn't realize I needed people this much.
Yeah.
Justin, how have you? What was the difference for you as far as like being there as much as you want, and then kind of having it swept out from under you?
I'm definitely an introvert, right? But so like I started around probably 2012 with jiu-jitsu, but like I never, like, even Butch, like he'll tell you I've probably hung out since 2012, as long as he's known me, I've probably hung out with him, the whole team together, and it like after stuff maybe 6 times probably since then. And it has nothing to do with like, I love everybody there, I like everybody there, but I'm more of a private guy. I don't like to go out a lot. I get uncomfortable around a lot of people. So when I first started, I didn't have an athletic background. Like Bush said, I was just a skinny, dorky kid. I'm still a dork. I'm just not as skinny now, I guess. But a lot of people, we were talking about this the other day, they never see, in life and jiu-jitsu, they never see where you start, right? They only see where you're at now, right? So people will be like, oh, look, he's hitting them Minari rolls and all that crazy stuff now. That's cool. Well, they didn't see me 6 years ago with a chair in my room trying to figure out how to spin upside down, right? Like for like 2 hours. Like, I want to figure this out. So I didn't really get in jiu-jitsu, not for any social thing or any even like athletic thing or anything like that. I got into it because I like strategy stuff, I guess. I'm kind of a nerd and I like puzzles and stuff. And it's like the ultimate puzzle, right? Because not only do you have to figure jiu-jitsu out, and then you got to figure your opponent out, and then you got to figure yourself out, right? So you had to do all that. But I guess for me, like, man, I always sunk myself into something. It used to be video games a lot back in the day. But like with jiu-jitsu, you get to keep that, right? It's like a video game's popular for what, like 6 months, and then you got to go learn a new one, right? So jiu-jitsu, I got to keep that. I could keep building on my game, as they say. But it's like, I want to say, man, I started in like 2012 for like real jiu-jitsu, not just like fighting people in the backyard or rolling around. But I want to think like, I would say probably not healthy, but as far as depression goes, anytime I had a bad breakup, I would just go and dive in jiu-jitsu for like 3 years. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't even talk to anybody. I would just do jiu-jitsu, study it, learn all I could. And then it's got me through 2 or 3 of those for sure. family problems. I go and do jiu-jitsu. Now, I wouldn't say that's healthy as much as I dove into it, but it's definitely helped me a lot. That's something I can do. Like, I was this last Monday, I was feeling pretty down. I was at work. Gets stressful there. Didn't have any of my gear. I literally went to Dick's and got a bunch of stuff just so I could go to jiu-jitsu that night. I was like, I'm going to go train tonight. Like, I have to. I need to release this. I have to. And it not only is it like a physical thing, it's a mental thing, right? Like, I get to just kind of like Ethan was saying, like, while you're there, you zone out. But I do zone out when I get out of there. And I think I've got that part from instructing and teaching now. Like, I legitimately went back and watched your charity event and was watching stuff like Tyler, Josh, Ethan. I was seeing what I could see, mistakes that they made. And I was like, why they could improve here. They could improve here. I could improve here. That's kind of how I spend my spare time. I'm not so much going out doing all kinds of stuff. I'll literally come home and just like load something up and be like, okay, that's cool. Let's fix this next time we get to class. So it's even after I'm out, as far as instructing goes. And maybe you and Butch also think the same. It's like, I can like program that into my mind and be like, well, let's see how we can do that. So I also take it outside of the gym for a little while, but I'm kind of I think people watch my Facebook and probably think I'm like a big fun dude all the time, but I pretty much am just a dork that just kind of does this one thing. I just try to be good at this one thing, and that's it. But
no, that's good. I would argue with you said, that maybe you said that diving into jiu-jitsu maybe is not the healthiest thing, but I would argue that maybe arguably it is, right? Because that's when some people, when they're depressed or they're going through some issues, a bad breakup or family problems, they turn to drugs or alcohol or some other issues. And at least you have a healthy outlet, because it's not turning into, there's no unhealthy obsession, meaning that you're so into jiu-jitsu, people are like, Justin, you need to do something else. It's like you're on crack. It's not like that, right? You're making, because I tell people the same thing. Like I think we're all lucky. I don't look, we all have other hobbies, so I don't want to overgeneralize this, but I always tell people, I said, I'm lucky that my hobbies don't cost me money, which jiu-jitsu costs us a little bit of money, but some people fish and they spend a bunch of money on lures and fishing poles and boats and whatever, right? We just go to jiu-jitsu. You know what I'm saying? We might buy some gis or some no-gi outfits or a nice cup to protect our balls, or
the metal Rick cup.
Yeah, diamond cup like Joe Rogan. Yeah, all that stuff. But honestly, we have honestly, I would argue that you're finding something that's all of us that's not unhealthy, right? It's definitely healthy. We find, instead of we pour ourselves into jiu-jitsu and making our lives better, which also, like I said, that's why I like listening to some of these podcasts. One of these podcasts, if you guys haven't heard it, like one of the John Jacques Machado podcasts with Joe Rogan was amazing, right? Like to me, just because he's just talking about the same thing that we're kind of talking about. Is just like like he runs to make his jiu-jitsu better, and he would show up to jiu-jitsu tired because he's so good that he wanted to give other people a chance, right? And he's like, and I didn't tell him that I showed up tired. I just ran, and that way I'd go, and then it was harder for me, and then that made me better, and he ate right because that made him better, but he wasn't being unhealthy about it, right? It just something that was his thing. And also I think we're all hard on ourselves. I would say that, man, we're lucky that we have this, because we all say we're a dork, right?
I have a Dragon Ball Z gi right there.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. And then Nate, who is another one of the best guys in the gym. And
for sure,
I always, just so you guys know too, Gary, you're not around me a bunch, but I brag on Justin and Nate all the time, saying that they're probably two of the best people in the state. And Nate plays fucking Magic cards and Pokemon.
I used to play Magic cards.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's as dorky as you can be for an adult of our age. You know what I'm saying? But he's a badass. He's an amazing practitioner, and And a lot of us look up to him, and a lot of new guys in the gym look up to him, and same to you, Justin. And so like all those things that we think are dorky are not, in a weird way, because it's like, it's what makes you, and what makes people like love the people that you are. That's the thing. I mean, obviously we respect everybody in this little group here. People respect your jiu-jitsu, and that's what we're doing. They respect that. But on a side note, I respect everything about everybody in this thing, right? I know everything I know about every one of you. Like, that's why we sit afterwards and talk. And sometimes we act goofy. Like, you guys know me. I try to make you guys laugh. So I'll ask Ethan about Tinder and Hinge, and it's a joke. It's a joke because we all laugh, right? But I'm not making fun of Ethan. One thing is I like to know that stuff, but it's like I like to know you guys outside, and that Dragon Ball Z and all this. I don't know anything about it, but I'm definitely interested because I'm like, well, Justin's a badass dude. He's awesome at jiu-jitsu. He's a great instructor. Everybody loves him. I want to know about Justin. So I'm like, hey, tell me about Dragon Ball Z. I like those cool pictures that you made with DK and James Maven. To this day, I share them all the time. Even if we're still not as friendly as we were at one time, I'm like, those pictures are badass. I love it. And then, yeah, everybody here, which is a great thing. That's why I think it's good about mental health. So all the things that we say, hey, I'm a dork, or I'm this, I'm that. When it comes to getting together as, I think that ironic is one of the cool things about actually doing what we do is there's a finality about, like, all of us let's say the four of us in the room, we didn't do jiu-jitsu. This is what I think happens in the real world. Let's say the four of us were in a bar. We don't know each other. All of us are kind of like probably sizing each other up to a weird extent, rather if it's for just fighting or even socially, right? You can be like, I'm dressed nicer than this guy, or this guy's kind of dorky. But in the gym, it doesn't matter because there's a finality to it. We roll, and whoever wins or whoever does good, there's a camaraderie and there's a respect that makes all that other stuff go out the window. Like if Justin beats me up and he's like, I like Dragon Ball Z, I'm like, well, I better find out what the fuck this Dragon Ball Z shit is. It's probably pretty good, right? Or if Ethan's talking about some forensic accounting, I'm like, well, that guy just kicked me out. What's this forensic accounting shit? I don't, you know what I mean? Like it makes, and I think that's what we're missing, right? Because it makes me pay more attention to your real life, because I know what you are on the mat, and I know what kind of person you are, and that, and even when we beat each other, there's a camaraderie because you're like, hey, I beat you twice, 2 or 3 times with the same movement. You need to make an adjustment. And that's cool, because a lot of people don't do that, right? We just get mad at each other, and then at least in the gym, you're like, hey man, like make this adjustment. And I'm like, okay, thanks for helping me, man. I really appreciate that. And then we get better together, and then we're closer because we help each other.
Rick and I are total opposites, right? We couldn't be more opposite than anybody. But Rick's like one of my best friends at the gym. We respect each other. And it's just crazy. If you think about it, it's like him and I have nothing other besides jiu-jitsu in common at all.
Yeah.
But he's one of my closer friends. It's awesome.
Or not to call people out by name, or John Marshall, who's a lawyer. And that's what I always tell people. I was like, this is one of the few places, we've already said it, but it means, and I'm sure Gary will echo the thing, where you're black or white, brown, yellow, whatever colors people want to make. It doesn't matter if you're doctor, lawyer, garbage worker, no job, drug dealer. We have this thing together. There's no other place where a drug dealer and a doctor and a lawyer would hang out. Zero. Right?
Maybe Walmart. That's it.
Exactly. Like at this gym, it blows my mind, because I'm like, I know this guy, he's selling weed in his basement, right? It's and this guy's a millionaire, right? But they love each other.
I tell people it's almost like you're joining a mafia of like some sort. Like everybody's like, how'd you get that car? I was like, well, Butch knew a guy that helped me get this car. Like
that's a good point too, because we all help each other, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I know somebody, I'll hook you up, right? And we all help it. That's John and how many people. It's ironic because Rick is a pain doctor, and how many people get hurt in the gym and actually need a pain doctor. He's not purposely hurting you, but he's helping his business, right? And
I'm still questioning that.
Yeah, it's always good, man. And it's I can't say enough how beautiful it is. But I think to get back on track. That's what helps our mental health. Now, not to get off track, but I wanted to bring this up. And Gary, maybe you can help us kind of, because you're the smartest one in this group of four.
Definitely.
Yeah, Gary gives a weird look.
But hey, going right now.
Let me bring a downer, but I want to address this while it's fresh in my mind. We've had several people at the gym throughout the years, and some that you may or may not know, that have committed suicide, right? I was thinking about this while I was driving home. Ian Mcneal, you guys all remember him.
Thought about him today, actually.
Yeah. And so for guys that don't know, I don't think he purposely tried to, nobody knows, right? But he was huffing like maybe computer cleaner or something, whatever that stuff is people do, and he died. So nobody knows if it was on purpose or not. I do know that, I will tell you the saddest part of that whole story is that he called me that night and I didn't answer the phone, which is not uncommon for me. And then he commits suicide. So I do feel bad for the rest of my life. But Billy Ash also is another one. And there's more than that. I don't want to, disparage anybody, but the point is, we're talking about mental health, and it's not help to everybody. There's some people there that still needed help, right, in this great environment that we did have, and it still didn't help them. If you went through that, Gary, and all the gyms that you've had, I guess, and that's why I'm saying you're the smart one, is maybe you can kind of help us parse this out.
So for me, the thing that I would say, because I don't have a lot of experience being involved with people who committed suicide. I do have a couple of friends that I lost touch with along the way and found out that they committed suicide, but no one that's ever been too close. And though I'm very I don't know, sometimes I think extroverts, you guys talk about it being introverts. I think sometimes extroverts, we don't form a lot of close bonds. And I didn't really, I had a few friends before jiu-jitsu, but before jiu-jitsu, I didn't have a ton of close bonds. I had a lot of people who I liked and a lot of people who seemed to like me.
Yeah.
But I felt like I had to be everything for everybody. And so I couldn't be everything for one person. If that makes sense.
No, that actually, just that statement alone is interesting, because I don't know how you guys I don't know how you view extroverts, but I view you guys as just having the world by your hand, right? I'm with Justin and Ethan, right? And you wouldn't think, because I own a gym and I have to talk to everybody, and also my job is medical device sales. So I'm a salesman and I have to talk to everybody. I will just be honest with you, that's not my real personality. We talked about this, Justin and Ethan and I talked about this the other night. My real personality is exactly like them. You take me at home, I'll just shut my mouth. I don't talk. You put me in a room. Let's say that Gary, you're having a party. It has zero to do with jiu-jitsu. It's just all your friends. I'm probably going to be really quiet because I'm uncomfortable. I don't have anything to offer. That's how I'd feel. Like, I know what to do now. I've read enough books and listened to enough podcasts, and I know what I need to do, and I do it because it's a job. But I'm with Ethan and just, we're there's so many times, like, I've gotten yelled at by my wife and my family. They're like, I've been at family things and I don't talk, and they're like, isn't it your job to talk? Isn't that what you do? I'm like, yeah, well, no offense, but I get paid for that. I'm not getting paid to talk to you. I'm saying it sounds terrible, but it's an honest statement, right? Like, I'm not going out of my comfort zone because I don't have to. I don't feel the need to entertain the room. But anyway, the point is, I would never have thought. I would just assume as an extrovert, you were the shit. So it's an interesting conversation. So because I don't think the three of us know what that's like. We have no idea. Because mine's all, I'll just tell you, I feel like it's all an act. I feel like I'm a fake person all the time. And that's also not true, but I'm just saying that's what I feel like. That's my mental health issue.
I can throw it on, but then I need a couple of days by myself to chill out.
Exactly. When you guys get it to a certain degree, right? Like, Justin gets it probably as a teacher, if you came in and you're just quiet, everybody's like, fuck that guy, I'm going to go to another gym, right? So sometimes because of that, we feel like we probably have imposter syndrome. Like, you're like, this is not really me. I feel weird. Like, I feel like it's fake, right? So I'm just trying to get you to understand, and other people that are extrovert to understand what it's like to be us. We feel like we're always trying to fit in, kind of deal. And then even when we do, we just feel like it's fake. Like, you know what I mean? It's a weird position to be, and that's the mental health issue. I know for me, but I see Ethan shaking his head. He probably agree. Do you agree, Ethan? That's kind of.
Yeah, I mean, that's like another like unique thing about like, you know, when I started jiu-jitsu, like I said before, like I had maybe like 2 people I talked to outside my family. And now it's like, I think you and me talked about this too, like we all kind of seem like extroverts at the gym because we all have this one thing in common, that's jiu-jitsu. So when we put us all in a room together, everyone's pretty much an extrovert. But yeah, like you were talking about before, like if you like took one of us out and put us in like different, you know, away from each other, we'll just, you know, kind of keep to ourselves and just, you know, not talk.
Do you ever try to like figure out the room? Like you're like, man, like I'm gonna see who's cool here, who I might connect with a little bit.
Oh yeah, all the time.
See my weird self.
Yeah, so like I don't know why, I just always think about this night. I think it was right after the tournament in November. All of us, Gary,
Was that the
I just been after a seminar, I can't remember. We all went to Vino's afterwards, and we got there kind of early, and like it was just the guys from the gym and no one else. And like I just sat there. I was like even like when I'm around you guys, like I won't really talk too much just because I legit just have nothing to say most of the time. I just enjoy the moment, honestly. And I always think about that time. Like I was just sitting there at the bar, and I was just having the time of my life, not talking, just because I saw like everyone from the gym. I knew everyone, just having a good time. I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. I could do this all night.
But you were happy because they were happy, right?
Yeah.
I get there. Like when y'all go to Vino's, I'm like, man, I love y'all.
Yeah.
But I'm going home.
Yeah.
Like it's like I don't know. I just don't feel comfortable there. And I think newer people at the gym, or people don't know me as much, think I'm being rude. Like I don't want to hang out with them, but it's not that I don't want to hang out with anybody. I'm just not comfortable there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I know what you mean. And so as a person that studied all this, because that's how I make a living. Here's the thing. You feel comfortable, or I'll just, because I'm not going to say what you feel, but typically we feel good if you're an expert at something. So if somebody asked us a jiu-jitsu question, you guys know, and you feel comfortable, so you can ask. That's why we're comfortable. So if you put us in a room where they're not talking about jiu-jitsu, they're talking about having fun or hooking up with girls or things that we're not comfortable with, you feel like you don't have anything to offer, so it's very uncomfortable, right? So what I've done to make myself more comfortable in those situations, which is different, is because it's a job. You know, like I know if I'm going to go talk about a spinal cord stimulator, which is my job, and I feel uncomfortable, that means I need to know more about the thing. I need to become an expert in that subject. So then I can study. And then if somebody asks me about that, then I'm good, right? However, in social situations, we're not talking about jiu-jitsu. We're not talking about, so, you know, it's weird because in a social situation, if Gary, if you came to me and you said, hey, and this is what happens, like people that love me, it's because they asked me about me. You know what I'm saying? That sounds terrible. That's what happens. If Gary's like, if you met me at a bar and you didn't know, you're like, hey, I heard you do jiu-jitsu. Can you tell me about that? We would have the best time. But if you're like, hey, Gary, or hey, Butch, you're like, what do you do? Or, you know, just ask me around. It would be so awkward.
What are your thoughts on this subject?
Exactly. It would be so awkward. That's what it's like to be an introvert. Somebody has to hit what you're good at. And that's literally how the conversation is good. Like, cause I had to study that. Cause some people would be like, I met Butch and it was so awesome. Like, he's such a great guy. And I'm like, why did they say that? And then I was like, oh, it's because they asked me about my life. Right. And then, and we're all like that. And so that's literally like how I help myself in those situations I'm not comfortable. If I can get one-on-one with somebody that I'm not good with, I'll be like, hey, so what do you do for fun? Or what do you do? And then all of a sudden we're having a good conversation because they're telling me what they're happy about. It doesn't have to be about me. It just, we have to hit that wavelength that it's something that is good, right? As an extrovert, I'm assuming like you've already hit all these wavelengths that we have a hard time hitting. like I said, I've been studying this stuff for years, and I'm no expert, but I at least have, because I feel like I'm a guy that plays the middle ground. Like if I would ask, if you would have came up to Ethan and say, hey, like, is Butch an introvert, an extrovert? Ethan would probably say he's an extrovert. Like that's what he knows of me.
Do you feel like people think you're an extrovert because I feel like people think I am.
Yeah.
And then they get like kind of upset if I'm kind of quiet one day, you know, or like.
Well, that's and so because I know you're going through relationship stuff now, Justin, and all you, but that's how I figured it all out, was because my wife would ask me those questions. She would actually get mad, and she'd say, "Hey, I saw you at the gym, and why are you not like that with me?" I was like, it's not really. It's a different thing, you know. I'm not trying to. I'm not pretending. It's just like that's a situation where jiu-jitsu is my thing. That's my gym. I know that when people come in, they're like, "Hey, this is Butch's gym. He needs to talk to me." Like I know I'm doing something, right? But like when I'm at home, you know, I'm trying to be myself. I'm just like a quiet guy, you know what I mean? I'm like,
you want to chill out because you're in your domain, I guess. You're like, I can be myself.
Yeah. And I think, and this is just me explaining to you, Gary, which is also explaining to other people. I think this is how people need to understand the three of us, because, and I think people probably floored that I would say that I'm an introvert, but I think that's the problem we have, is we don't understand why people can't understand us, because they see us in a certain environment and they know Ethan and they know Justin as a certain person. They know Butch Hiles as a certain person. I'm not really that person like in real life, right? And Gary, you might know what that's not like. You may be that. I don't know what it's like to be an extrovert, right? So I'm just guessing, but maybe for you, maybe you're the same way all the time, and like we are different people at different times, and that's what's confusing. That's what screws our mental health up.
So here's the thing, like going back to like, how did the COVID stuff change? Like I'm a really patient person. I don't have too many highs and lows. I'm pretty even keel all the time. Nothing gets me too excited for the most part. Nothing gets me too down for the most part. But with the COVID, I realized that because I've never thought of myself as somebody who would deal with depression, or like I've never really been down in the dumps about anything. And I realized how important, not just jiu-jitsu, but being around people, how important that was to me. Because without people, like as you guys are sort of okay being inside your shell, and not even just that, but like being around people but still being inside your shell. The fact that I know it sounds silly, like I didn't have anybody to perform for, right? And so now that I don't have anybody to perform for, I'm performing for myself. That's not interesting to me, because I don't find myself, honestly, all that interesting. Like some of the stuff that I can do is great. I'm pretty good at jiu-jitsu. I have fun playing guitar. I think I'm pretty good at conversation. I like listening to and talking to people.
Your art is fantastic, by the way, Gary. By the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But those are all things that like and part of it that it's funny, because I think part of it being an extrovert is like sometimes it's like trying to prove my worth, if that makes sense. Like I guess I never really thought about it like that until
you have to entertain everybody, or
always. And that's, to be honest, it's why I don't like throwing parties. Like occasionally I will. But I feel it's my job. If I host a party, it's my job to make sure everybody had a good time. And if anybody leaves unhappy, then I am crushed. It's the same thing when somebody comes to jiu-jitsu. If somebody feels like they didn't learn something, if somebody feels like they left, even if it's their own accord, even if they came, they didn't work, they didn't bust their ass like everybody else, they showed up and they were just there, they kind of went through the motions. If they didn't take something home from that, I'm crushed, because I feel like that was my job as the extrovert. Like I need to provide for everybody the same experience, and if they don't all have the same experience, I feel like I've let people down. And that was another thing that I found out through COVID. Like I said, I never really thought of myself as somebody who would deal with depression or whatever, but not being able to teach class, not being able to see people, like it hit me hard. And then on top of that, you take away the fact that it's the only exercise that I do. And you were talking about Jean-Jacques Machado. When I was competing heavy and I was, I was on Fight to Win cards, and I was going to World Masters, and I was as many competitions as I could hit. And when I would go to competitions, I'd enter as many divisions as I could hit, because I didn't want 4 matches. I wanted, if I could get 16 matches that day, then great. And so I would, at that time, I was running and I was lifting weights and I was doing all that stuff. So jiu-jitsu is my only exercise. The only reason I do anything extra is to make my jiu-jitsu better. So when all that was taken away, now I don't have people to perform with, like, I was depressed. And my wife's seen it. My wife is kind of like you guys. She's an introvert. She'll talk. She's sociable, but it's not her thing. She doesn't want to. She's seen me and she was like, I remember we closed down a little bit in Ohio before everybody else did, because the Arnold was in March. They cut the Arnold and said it was only for competitors. There was no spectators. And everything got shut down April, which was when I was planning on opening a Bobcat, and we did the speakeasy jiu-jitsu. So like, hey, knock 3 times on the back door and bark Piggly Wiggly. So we was doing that for a little while. June we had an opening, but from the middle of March until June, I'd done jiu-jitsu like 3 or 4 times, 5 times tops. And my wife was like, hey, you need to come, because her office, all the gyms were closed down. My wife was like, hey, you need to come to the office and bring some exercise clothes. And so I brought change of clothes and went in. She was like, go into the gym. She has a little gym at her office, and she's property. She's like, go into the gym and don't come out until you're done. And I was like, what? She's like, don't come back. And I watched it was like UFC 28 or something. And I watched the whole thing the entire time. It was me on the exercise bike, and then jumping over to she has like a full weight machine, has like, you can do bench press on it, like tricep. I did every exercise you could possibly do in 3 hours. I came out just sopping wet, probably burnt 3,000 calories, and hadn't done any real exercise for a while. I was like, that's what I needed. So yeah, the exercise is mental clarity. As far as like the physical exertion is mental clarity for me. And like the hard thing for me was like not being around people. And that was my biggest stressor. Once I was able to teach again, everything was good. I felt good. Not being around people just about drove me crazy.
Wow.
It's interesting because first of all, we can all learn from each other. I'm learning some stuff right now, but what I think is funny is that you need people, right? As an extrovert. As an introvert, we don't need people, but when we don't have people, we're upset as well.
I'm like,
yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's the weird part of being an introvert, because you're like, I hate people, but if you don't have them, you're like, I'm fucking miserable.
It's weird. We talked about this the other night, but you ever like, we both, I know you and I both, like, try to help people as much as possible, but we also don't want to be around a bunch of people. So it's like,
yeah, that's the interesting dichotomy that I've always lived with my life, is that which as a 44-year-old man, like, I've come to grips with, but like, I know that I have an that's my path, is I know I'm an introvert that lives an extrovert lifestyle, right? So it's in my path, right? And same with you, Justin. Like, you're getting there now too. You get it. You're a guy that would prefer to be by yourself. However, when you're the happiest, you're with a group of guys teaching them what to do, right?
For sure.
So
if people
confusing
send me messages or whatever, I try to help them if I can, right? Like,
because that's where you gather. It's your purpose, right? Here's the thing.
I feel like I've been where they have been. Some people that message me sometimes, and I try to help them because I don't want them to feel like I have felt by myself before,
Well, here's another, like, I drive all day, literally all day. For example, this month, my work tracks my thing. I have an app on my phone, and they literally track where I go. So this month, not including weekends, I've drove 5,000 miles, right?
Wow.
So why that's important is because that's all I do is listen to podcasts, which in books and books on tapes. And so one of the books I'm listening to is "What's Your Purpose," right? And so we all look for a purpose, right? And like, and sometimes I know, and sometimes I don't know what my purpose is, or sometimes I have an idea what my purpose is, and then sometimes it changes. The reason I say that is because I do think for every one of us that's on here, we have a general purpose. Our purpose is to share the knowledge that we've learned, right? All of us, right? In the way that it doesn't have to be the way that I showed Ethan or the way that I showed whoever. It could be the way that you took the knowledge and you made it your way, right? So honestly, that's our purpose. My purpose is my legacy is also my purpose, meaning that when I'm dead and gone, and that's the hardest thing is what is your legacy? I know I'm kind of bouncing around, but one time I talked to Marcelo and he was talking about his legacy, and that's why he made the White to Black DVDs, because he's like, when I'm dead, somebody's gonna look at these DVDs, and that was my legacy. I just want to live on when I'm gone. And I thought about that, and that's all of us, right? Like I don't really think about that, but at the same time, like in 50 years, we're all gonna be dead probably, right? And so my legacy, my purpose is I do want to continue to help people the best I can. And what that is just sharing the knowledge of everything. This podcast is sharing the knowledge. Jiu-Jitsu sharing the knowledge of what Hoy showed me, what Marcelo showed me, what Ethan showed me, what Gary showed me, what Justin showed, because we all help each other. That's my purpose. But anyway, you guys always have a purpose, and that's what's going to fulfill our life is just having a purpose of whatever that is, right? It changes daily. Jiu-Jitsu is one of our purposes, but there's other things in life we can help each other with. And anyway, my thought is that to the day I die, I'm going to help people, whatever it is. Like Justin, you brought it up earlier. You said, hey, I'm looking for a car. I happen to know a guy. Here's a guy. Same with you. I just want us all to help each other, whatever that is. Every bit of knowledge, every bit of friendship, every bit of everything in the world that I can share and make somebody's life better. That's my legacy, and that's my purpose, and that's what's going to make me happy, right?
I feel like not to interrupt you, Butch. Sorry. I feel like we talked about this the other night. Like some people, I feel like usually kind of look at you weird whenever you just want to help people, right? Like they think you have an ulterior motive, and there's no ulterior motive. Like I just want to help somebody because I've been in a situation where I've not been able to, or nobody's been able to help me or wanted to help me or whatever. And I don't want anybody to ever feel like they're in that situation. Like I want to just generally help somebody if I can. Me right now, I'm in this situation where I can maybe help whomever. Before, probably wasn't in that kind of place in my life at that point, but if I can help whomever needs help now, I will, if I can, if they're not an asshole for the most part. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. But that's another thing we're talking about. Jiu-Jitsu is everything in life is learning something and getting better. Jiu-Jitsu is so easy for us to just kind of focus in on, right? Because it's a journey from white to black, right? And then when you're blue, purple, brown, black, you share your journey and your knowledge with somebody else, and then that makes you, it's fulfilling a purpose because you're helping somebody and you're getting better and they're getting better, which makes you better, right? Mm-hmm. Which is life, which goes back to, let's just all talk about our friend John Marshall, who's a lawyer and successful, but that's why he does jiu-jitsu. He early on, right? He told me early on. So you guys don't know, podcast aside, but John Marshall is a friend of ours and a guy at the jiu-jitsu at the gym who's a blue belt now, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But dude, he asked me for privates for like 2-3 years before I gave them to him, and just forever, and I just kind of ignored it. But anyway, the point was when I finally did it, and he just wrote me immediately, and he's a very successful lawyer, makes a lot of money, but he loved jiu-jitsu, and he said, you know why? Because this is life. He's like, same with law. He was like, I win some, I lose some, and I got to get back up, and I got to go. Sometimes I get my ass kicked, and I want to just give up. But that's just like jiu-jitsu. When a black belt whoops my ass and I feel like I need just to quit, I just need to give up, and well, why am I doing this shit? And then I need to wake up and say, because I love it, and I need to learn more, and I'm going to get better. And then maybe someday I'll be able to last more than 20 seconds. Maybe it's a minute, and maybe it's 2 minutes, and maybe in 10 years, I'm giving this guy a run for his money. He's like, that's what my job is. Like, if I gave up every time I got my ass kicked, then I would be nowhere. And then that reminded me that's my life, right?
Into something personal. Like, so like, had a pretty bad breakup, and then I probably didn't train jiu-jitsu for a minute. It's probably because I was hurt too. You know, remember when I tore my groin out? All that happened like at once, right? So I remember, you probably remember this message. I was like, I went and I did the Super Vop versus, I can't remember the dude's name now. Whatever his name was. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. That guy. So I lost that fight, and I hadn't trained for a while. And then at that point, not only did I kind of step out and be like, man, I need to get better at no-gi, right? Like, but I also took that and was like, you know, like you were talking about getting knocked down. Like, I was getting knocked down in life. And then that was pretty much the first match I really lost in a long time. So I took that too. And I remember messaging you. I was like, Butch, like, I'm just going to go train no-gi in Ohio for a little while. And I'm always thankful for you for this, because you will just let us go train and learn from anybody. You're never, you know, some gyms are like, you're only going to train here, and you need a patch, and you need this, and this is all you're ever going to learn. I was like, not only is this like a thing that I want to get better at jiu-jitsu, it's like I want to get better at, like, I used to have terrible anxiety about just driving different places. I'd be like, oh man, I've never been there. I don't want to go there, you know? So I took that, and then I took meeting a bunch of new people, and then I took went and get better at this one thing. And you were cool with it. You were like, yeah, man, go train wherever you want to go. And I went to 10th Planet at Newark, Ohio, up there for like 2 years doing privates. And I learned no-gi, but I also got me used to meeting new people, a whole new team, and interacting with new people. And not only that, so learning the whole like actual no-gi, which is almost entirely different than gi now.
Absolutely.
And I did all that. Like I for me personally, that accomplished a lot of stuff. Not only just jiu-jitsu, but also like social anxiety and anxiety of like traveling different places and meeting new people and being lost somewhere. Ethan and I were talking about this, like being lost somewhere, you know, like I don't know anybody here. I don't know a soul here, but those guys really welcomed me and helped me out a lot. And they improved my game. So not only do I thank John Burroughs and them guys up there for kind of bringing me into them to like part of their team too, but I also thank you for just being like, man, it's cool to go up there and do that. Like if you want to, just whatever you want to do. And because that helped me out socially, also more than just with jiu-jitsu. So yeah, I always want to thank you for that. I never got to tell you that.
Well, no, I appreciate it. And just so you know, too, on the side end, you know, I would have people write me and they're like, hey, Justin's doing this. And they would actually try to get me against you, right? I'll be honest with you. I don't remember who these people are, so it's going to sound stupid, but
I probably guess. But.
Yeah, but the same thing. And I was like, well, here's the part of our gym. And I've always preached this from the beginning is, for example, you know, there's other gyms and obviously we're recording, so I don't want to call people up, but that's what I noticed was when other people train or they cross-trained, they would attack those people. And what I would say to those people, for other people, because they would tell, for example, anyway, a bunch of people would come to our gym and they would say, hey, I train here. I want to learn more jiu-jitsu and, you know, but don't let my instructor know and whatever, you know. And then ultimately what happened to their instructor would find out and it would be a bunch of drama. And so what I would tell them, I was like, hey, that means your instructor is scared, because I tell my people, go train wherever you want. And if they came back and said, hey, this gym's way better, that means I need to get better. you know, man, that was the thing. I'm not insecure. That means like if Justin, you came back and you said, hey, those guys are way better at whatever. And quite, let's be honest, they were. I don't know those.
Oh, they're blue belts and white belts were kicking my ass when I first got
Absolutely.
there. Straight up. Like, I mean, they were destroying me.
Yeah.
But it was also, for me, it was more of a personal journey too. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to go train jiu-jitsu somewhere else. It was like, man, I need to open up and do new things and kill this anxiety, you know?
Yeah.
But
well,
also
and then
want to thank Nathan Tustin. I saw he post something. He said he respected my thought process with jiu-jitsu. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. And I see you're getting gains, so you lift a lot. So
well, and then ultimately what happened was from this get-go is that once you learn that part of the game, then the rest of your game caught up, and then you're like, hey, now I've learned what they do, and now I'm beating these guys, you know, because I heard from you and Nate, and you're like, yeah, now I'm kicking, you know, whatever, or, you know, I'm not saying you're beating people, but you know what I'm saying.
We went from getting tapped out like 20 times to maybe twice in a round, you know, like it definitely helped. Those guys are cool, and they were cool with, you know, we're like, well, hey, we're from another gym, but like we want to train up here, you know. So it was kind of like the atmosphere that you bring too. Like, it's cool, man. Like, just come in and have fun. Like,
and it's hard for people to do because there's gyms in Charleston right now in West Virginia. They're scared to death of you guys. I've had people ask, hey, can I train here? And I'm like, yeah, go ahead and do what you want. And they ask those instructors, and those instructors say no, that you cannot train here because they're afraid you're going to whoop their ass. And my point was from the get-go, hey, Justin, you're this, go down there and see what happens. And then you're like, hey, I got tapped 20 times. And I'm like, that's a failure in me, right? Like, I know it's not a failure in you. That's a failure. I need to learn what you're doing. Go find out what's going on and teach me. Right. Well, and that's
as an instructor, as an owner of an academy too, like, I think you have to look at it like this, like,
absolutely.
If you start to assume that what you have is all you need, then something eventually is going to lack. Absolutely. And for a student to go and pick up new tricks, there's no harm in that, in him coming back, because he's going to share that stuff with everybody he trains with. So now you're going and acquiring more knowledge and bringing more knowledge into the gym. I've got a few people, you know, and there are a few people who maybe, I was talking about the value of people. And I think this is kind of what we've hit on this with the COVID stuff, is the value of people. There have been instances where people couldn't pay, or maybe they, you know, short on money or whatever it is. And they would ask me about, like, hey, you know, I don't want to seem like somebody who's sponging off of you, and I'm not trying to do that. And I don't want to be taken advantage of, right? And I've still got to keep the lights on, and I got to, you know, all the rent's got to be paid and stuff. But if somebody can't train because they don't have money, then I am out a student, and my students are out an extra training partner if I don't let them come. But if I let them come, at least I have the value of their participation, whatever knowledge they might bring. If they're a good wrestler, and I wrestled in high school, but maybe they wrestled in, you know, they were a state champion or state qualifier. That's good to have at the academy. So there's more value than just their money, you know? And the value of people, the value of knowledge, coming back and bringing that to my academy, that is worth something, you know? And so if I had the same thing, if I had a student that wanted to go train somewhere else, good, go somewhere else. Because it's going to do one of two things. It's going to, like you said, it's going to tell me where I'm lacking as an instructor, or it's going to tell me where I'm doing good. Hey, you know, Gary, I tapped him 3 times with this, you know, with a clock choke. Or, hey, I caught 2 guys with this. And it's going to be like, okay, well, that's where I'm succeeding. Or, hey, I got tapped with a straight ankle lock twice. Well, okay, well, we need to work on straight ankle locks. It's going to tell me who I am as an instructor and who I need to be as an instructor.
It's interesting though, because I agree, but we all know. Again, I'm not naming names, but I know places right now where we're at that, one, will not let our guys train with them, and then number 2, will talk shit about our. You know, it's like It's like where do you train? And all of a sudden it's like, as soon as you say, they're like, they have nothing else to add to the conversation. Yeah. It's very strange. And I joke with, because people call me and they'll say, hey, I train at this gym. Will you honor our belt if we come to your gym? I'm not happy where we're at. Can I do this? And I'm like, look, like, I'm not in that fucking gang. You just do jujitsu. You don't do jujitsu. I don't care if you're a purple belt and white belts tap at you. You're still a purple belt. We'll just work up until you can become a brown belt. I don't care.
Like, it might be one thing that they're bad at, right? Yeah. They might have not good guard retention, and the other guy's a good guard passer, right? Like, just work on that. Like,
yeah, it's entirely so. Which is why, obviously, we're all on. We're the same, group, or we have similar thinking. But I think that other people need to think like that. Like, I mean, and anything else, we're talking about mental health, but I mean, anything else in life, if there's somebody better than me at something, I want to learn from that person and get better. For some reason in jiu-jitsu, it's like a lot of almost gang mentality. Like, you're either with us or against us, right? And it's like, it's foolish. Like, it's just foolish, right? Like I get it to a certain degree. Like, if you're an instructor, you don't want to lose to this person because I get it to a certain degree, but at the same time, just as Justin said, in the history of my life, I've never gave anybody hell for training wherever they went, because the point was, I feel as confident as I can as an instructor and as a friend, they're going to come back. If they don't, I'm not going to pretend that I'm not going to be a little upset inside of me internally. I'm not going to, like, let's say that Ethan, my buddy Ethan, that blue belt, he went to another gym. I'm not going to pretend internally that Ethan said, hey, I'm not going to come back. I'm happier at this gym. I'm not going to be upset. I will be for a bunch of different reasons. I'll be upset because I'm like, Ethan's my friend. I can't believe my friendship. I mean, I'll be like, I'll be hurt. But at the same time, I also look inside myself and reflect, and I'll say, what did I do wrong? Because that's the ultimate thing. You just got a 50-50 thing. And then I will answer that question honestly. Maybe I didn't do good enough, right? But maybe it could be nothing. Ethan could just be like, hey, my friends are there. There's more this, there's more that. It's at my house, blah, blah, blah. Ethan's still going to be my friend. And that's also very hard for people, because a lot of people just turn their back on somebody like that and say, you left me. You're not my friend. Then you were never friends to begin with. Right? Like, if you're my friend and you decide to train somewhere else, you're not my fucking boyfriend. You're my friend.
Well, there's like friends.
You're not banging somebody else. You're just doing jiu-jitsu somewhere. You're still my friend.
There's
I'm like,
friends
man,
I'm still close with that I might not talk to forever. But if they message me today and was like, yo, man, I'm broke down on whatever, I will go, like, straight up. This technical issue, Gary, my buddy Jared said he could hear you very well, but the rest of us are low. I don't know. That's what he just sent me.
I'm not sure I can fix it this time. I'll try and fix it next time. We're still working out.
I remember a little buzzed, but
at least everybody can be heard this time.
Yeah, that's a good point, Gary.
I was going to say, what was I going to say? Now I've lost my train of thought. No, that's okay. Going back to like, I was thinking about the people leaving the academy, leaving your place. This happens a lot of times when people get blue belt. People get blue belt and they leave. Yeah. I have probably a dozen friends who stop training jiu-jitsu and don't train anymore.
Yeah.
And it doesn't change the fact what jiu-jitsu is to me is different than what it is to them. And just because they don't do jiu-jitsu anymore doesn't mean they're not my friends anymore. And that was one of the things that I really prided myself on, is like, make sure that I stay in contact, try and reach out to those people, say hey to them. I know they don't train anymore. Maybe they don't want to train anymore, and that's fine. But like, trying to stay in contact with those people who I fell in love with them as a person when they were on the mats. Just because they don't do jiu-jitsu anymore doesn't mean that I can't reach out and say, hey, what's going on? Because it's not, I've got nobody else in my family besides my son does jiu-jitsu. I love everybody in my family, and Absolutely. So like, it doesn't change.
No, I've got some friends that wrote me, and they're like, hey, my son wants to train at this place because it's closer and his buddies train there. Are you cool with that? And I was like, well, first of all, I'll never tell you what to do. I always make that joke. I'm like, you're not my boyfriend. You do whatever you want. We're friends, right? Literally, that's my main joke, right? But it's true. So they did. And then next question was, hey, do you care if I train? I know I'm blue belt under you, but I want to go, my son's here. Do whatever the hell you want. And we're still friends. And 100% we're still friends. Like 100, we're not even joking. It's not even like, you know what I mean? But that's part of the whole thing, right? Is that, because we're, again, to go back to mental health, it's the same thing, is that if you're my friend, you're my friend. And that's how I work my life, and vice versa, right? If I change, what my passion is or what I'm doing, I don't want my friends to drop me because I did something different. And that's what I want to offer all you guys. Same thing like you, Justin, to go back to what you're saying. Like when that all went down, you said, hey, I like no-gi better than this. I want to do this. And I literally said, hey, Justin, you're my, I don't remember their email exactly, but I said, you're my friend for life. I want you to do what makes you happy, and I'm always here for you.
Pretty much.
Yeah, something along those lines. And it was true. Meanwhile, while I'm getting emails from other people that are like, fuck Justin, whatever. I don't know. There was a couple, but it doesn't matter. It didn't matter. And I will honestly say that,
well, I feel like with that, not only was it a personal journey that I needed to go on, like I feel like I've took that knowledge and I've threw it on everybody else at the gym.
Absolutely.
As much as I could,
Absolutely. You've made me a better person. You've made the gym a better place. You've made it better for Ethan, who's here. And, sorry to, there's 3 of us that are in the same gym, and Gary's not, but that's why I keep saying those things. But honestly, so I'm thankful for the same people that you train with, Justin. And we're all going to be better people, just as I assume those people, whether I need to bring it, are thankful for the things that you've showed them, or vice versa, right? And that's part of life, and that's part of mental health is the same thing. Like, I think if I ask Ethan relationship advice, I'm not going to be mad because Gary gave me different relationship advice, right? It is what it is, right? So anyway, like I think that this is a valuable lesson for people that don't train with us. Is like we have a good, all of us, we're in a good place, and that's why even people, all of us that hang out together, like Gary has a different gym and Peyton has a different gym, Ryan Carroll has a different gym, and we don't interfere with each other. But I think that's the part that we appreciate with each other, is that nobody's like, hey, why'd you do this? Hey, why'd you do that? We're just like, we learn and we appreciate those things. And all of us do slightly different things. We have slightly different ideals, right? But all those things are going to come together and make us better people.
I told Dylan the other day in a private, I said, my goal is to make everybody in here better than me in a shorter amount of time.
Absolutely.
That's what will make me happy. Like, if I could see Dylan, Ethan, Tyler, whomever, Josh, whomever comes to class, if I can cut the time down that it took me to learn an Imanari roll, or a rubber guard, or lockdown, or any other stuff I do, any leg lock stuff, if I can cut 2 years out and make it, hey, they learn it in a month. Like if I can make them better than me, that makes me happy, right?
Well, nobody will understand that too. It's like I think you and I make that statement. Probably Gary makes it too. But we talk. Ethan was there tonight. We talk about the same shit. It's funny because it reminds me of I walked to school and 4 miles uphill.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's what it's
like. So I gave some stripes out to some of the new guys tonight. Mladen, do you know him, Justin?
Yeah, I've met him twice, I think. He's from Croatia or somewhere like that.
Serbia, yeah. Yeah. So tonight he got 2 stripes, but that's the thing. He was asking me, he's like, oh, that's awesome. He doesn't know anything about you. He's like, what does this mean? Like, what do I do? Like, how many stripes do I get? What's the next thing? And I was like, well, you get 4 stripes and you get a blue belt. And he's like, well, how long does that take? And I was like, well, 2 years, maybe a year, but here's the deal. Like, you I was like, look at the room. I was like, there's a black belt, which Rick Bowman is there, and there's like Wes, who's a brown belt, and Jeff, who's a brown belt, and like some purple, Danny, a purple. You know, I mean, it's like there was like colors everywhere. I was like, you have what I didn't have, right? Like I was like flying solo. I had to take seminars and pay $75 from a fucking blue belt. There's like 30 blue belts in this room. Yeah, you should take you a year because you have this knowledge, not because I'm a great instructor. I'm like, you're just surrounded by great people that every time you do something wrong, they're going to say, hey man, don't do this because of this. It's like, so I can't give you a timeline. I just know it's going to be faster than me. And that's the truth, right? You know, same with everybody in this thing, you know, even Gary, who you've been at it for a while, but you know, like we just didn't have these options. Like when I'm not obviously like I'm kind of saying like I walked upstream and did all this bullshit, but it's just so much better, right? It's just so much better. Like you guys are in a room of blue belts, and we can pass the knowledge that says, just like you said, hey, here's the things I didn't know. Also, there's like BJJ Fanatics. You've got a million DVDs you can download. You got YouTube that's for free. You've got Gordon Ryan that's revolutionizing the game. You've got 10th Planet. You've got EBI. You just like, I had to watch the fucking UFC to learn jiu-jitsu from Hoist Gracie. There was not even an instructional out at the point.
I remember almost breaking my neck learning how to truck roll by myself, right? Like I was like, man, I got to figure this out. And I'd watch this is before Fanatics. I'd watch like Geo and I'd be like, all right. Then I'd stop it on YouTube and I'd be like, all right, this is what he's doing. Then I turned my neck the wrong way. And bow. I was like, oh my God, I broke my neck.
Absolutely.
Now I could show somebody that and be like, yo, tuck your neck this way. Shoulder and roll.
Absolutely. We were so young in the sport that we were fighting MMA. This is no joke. This is probably, I guess, 97-ish. But anyway, one of my friends, you know, we both fought MMA, but he was in the main event. He fought for a title, you know, 1997. But anyway, he beat the guy with a rear naked choke. I didn't even know what that was. The most basic. I knew what an armbar was. I knew some other stuff. I was like, he won. He won the championship, a world title belt. And I was like, dude, what? You know, I was his corner. I was like, what did you just do? And he's like, man, I watched one of the UFCs. I learned off the UFC. Like, so we're talking like so 1997. So it was probably like UFC 5 or 6. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. That's how like where my knowledge. You know, we were just lucky to have knowledge. But anyway, it's just a different thing. We're like those old people saying the same thing, and you guys have all this and this tools. But all that being said, like we say it's a funny thing, but we're here to pass the knowledge with no strings attached, right? I'm not like when Ethan gets good or whoever gets good, I'm not like, hey, you did that move because of me, right? And same yeah, I showed you that fucking move. Yeah, I'm never, yeah, and that's why, you know, it's a toot our own horn, but I also think that's why we're good people. I'm not like, because there's also same people in the gym, you know, my gym that do say those kind of things. Like, and you guys know who I'm saying without saying words, right? Is like those people are like, hey, you did that because of me or whatever. But look, man, the bottom line is we're here to make each other better people. Jiu-jitsu is number one because that's what we're in the gym to do. But even if we can make each other better people, you know, that's what helps, right? If we can sit at the gym like we did Monday night and say, hey, here's what's happening in my life. This is why it sucks. What happened in your life? And we share some things. It makes us better people, right? And that's, I think, why we love jiu-jitsu. It's a camaraderie of men, which is what Justin made this comment Monday. That there's not a lot of that going on, right? Like men don't get around and share feelings, right? And I'm not saying we do that in jiu-jitsu by any means, but we do sometimes because we're finally together and we're finally talking. It's just a great environment for us, right? For guys, you know.
You and I both stay so busy usually, Butch. We usually don't have any time to even like text, right? So if we have that 15 minutes after class, we'll usually try to catch up like once a month or something. Be like, yo, what's going on? What's going on in your life? You know.
And it's hard, right? Because it's the same thing. It's like it's just life, right? You've got relationships, you got work, you got to go to sleep because you got to wake up in the morning, you got to do it all over again, and it's tough. And I know you mentioned earlier, Justin, but I think we all feel the same. Like, I'm afraid people think I'm an asshole because I don't do this or don't do that. Or sometimes people text me while I'm driving. I'm like, hey, I'll text them later.
I'll forget they text me, and I don't mean to. I'm like, oh fuck. And like you said, like with Ian, like, oh, I didn't get to text him that night. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't get to text that person back. Just because maybe I got busy or just something happened or some crazy stuff happened, or
Well, it does, yeah. And we're in the generation we got to learn that, right? Like, because it's the first generation with texting and phone calls and all that stuff, and sometimes you get mad that people don't write you back. Or I know people always like, "Did you not see my Facebook post?" I'm like, "Fuck, I've got like 6,000 friends." No, I did not. I don't mean that person. I'm like, no.
I've definitely noticed
that. Yeah, we're busy
teaching now as opposed to just being a dork that just comes. I feel like people will reach out to you more, and it's hard to get a hold of everybody, plus all your other stuff, plus the stuff you got going on. And I try to get to everybody, I do, but sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I'm tired. Like today, I slept most of the day. I slept like half the day today. Like I was just wore out today.
People don't understand too that you're going through your own shit, whatever that is, right? Busy at work, family problems, relationship. Like, you got your own shit. They might want you to talk about their stuff, but maybe you're dealing with your own stuff. It's like you don't have that energy or that focus to
energy. The energy is that's the big one.
Yeah, and Gary, this might be a good question for you too, to get you like and Justin, you're going through it now, but like,
I'm going to use the bathroom real quick though. Go ahead.
As an instructor, this is what I had to learn. So early on, when I had gyms, I felt like I was involved in everybody's drama, right? Because I wanted to help everybody for the right reason. So somebody like, hey, like my girlfriend's a bitch, right? So I'd be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. So we'd sit there and talk. And then the next thing I noticed is people's problems were my problems because I was so self-involved, and sometimes for right reasons, for wrong reasons, that I didn't know I have the whole story. So I shouldn't have even been involved in the way that I was. But anyway, I had to separate myself. As I got older, I was like, okay, here's the deal. When somebody writes me with every little piece of drama, I don't need to respond, and I don't need to give my opinion. I could still support you. Like, Gary, like if you wrote me and said, hey, like my wife is giving me a hard time and blah, blah, instead of being like, well, your wife is terrible because I'm your friend, right? Like, I'd be like, well, that sucks. I mean, I hope you get through it. So instead of giving you advice, I'm still like supporting you, but I had to learn that because it was just like, I felt like I took everybody's issues on. Like, I just had a horrible life. Like, everybody's problems are my problems. And then as I get older, I was like, I don't need to respond to every one of these things. Like, if somebody, like, people wrote me the other day, it's like, hey, my car got stolen, this and that. And I was it just didn't affect my life like it used to. I'd be like, well, that sucks. Like, just move on, right? I think it's important though for our own mental health, right?
Yeah, I think a big part of that sometimes too is the fact that, like, I was lucky enough to learn this probably even before jiu-jitsu, before I ever started instructing, is that, and like I said, people who know me know that I worked with adults with disabilities, and then before that, I worked a lot with kids, and as a high school student, I was a camp counselor during a day program. And so I learned pretty early on that a lot of times when people are sharing those problems with you, that it's just them getting it off their chest. They don't really necessarily need your advice. They don't really necessarily need your help. You're just talking, and they want somebody to hear it. And I was lucky enough to kind of figure that out early on. So now that I'm teaching jiu-jitsu, I know that they just want to say it. They're just trying to get it off their chest. And sometimes it's playing the therapist, right? A lot of what I do in my job is listening, and there's different words for it, but like active listening or mirroring and stuff like that, and just letting somebody know that you heard them is a lot of times enough. And you don't have to. They're not necessarily asking you to fix the problem, and most of the time you can't fix the problem. It's their problem to fix, but they just want to know that somebody heard them. And if you have an example that is like theirs that you can share with them, that say, hey, you know, I had this situation. Sounds like you're going through that too. This is what I did. You can share that with them. For the most part, a lot of times they're just looking to tell somebody. You know?
Well, that's a good point. I guess I used to get mad because I would give advice and they wouldn't listen, and then I would get pissed because I'm like, I told you what to do, and you didn't do it. So fuck your problem. You know what I'm saying? Like you're gonna have the same problem. I already gave you. You know what I mean? But and then I had to be like, well, no, we all go through our things, and then also there's a reasons people are the way they are sometimes, right? They're not gonna listen. Like there's a reason somebody lives in their mom's house in the basement. Right, you get them a job, and then they get fired in 2 weeks, and you do this, and then the same thing happens, and you're like, oh, okay, well, this person is just destined to be this person. Like I need to not get mad. I offered what I could offer.
You can't help everybody. I'm slowly learning that. I try, but you know.
Well, no, there's some people that are dealing with things that we can't understand, and the reason they perpetually do the same things is because they're damaged, right? And we can't understand that, because you can say like, hey, if you just quit smoking weed and spending all your money, you'd have money, and you can get out of your mom's basement, you do this, and then all of a sudden they got fired, and they're, you know. Anyway, the point, it was just like I had to learn that too, because I'm like, well, I told you what to do, but everybody's not ready to do those things, or they're never going to do those things. That's just what their life is at that thing, right? Like, and so like, because we have people at the gym now, like I said, we have lawyers, we have doctors, and we have people that sell drugs, and we have people that do nothing, right? Those people, I still respect those people. They're the way they are because they're the way they are. We've all went through our own drama, and we all deal with it in our own way, right? And some people don't deal with the way that we deal with it. There's no reason, you know, that's just it. So I had to quit worrying about that. Like, well, that's just, they are who they are, you know. And I mean, but anyway, I mean, that's one of the things I had to learn, especially I think as an instructor, you start to feel like you should have the answer for everything, not just jiu-jitsu, right? It's just like, you know, this is my job, it's jiu-jitsu, that's what you're here for. But then all of a sudden you ask me this question. Doesn't mean that I actually have the answer for all those questions. I can't answer all those things. That's not my job. Like I'm not a relationship person. I'm not a whatever, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of like, yeah. Just to like jump in real quick. That's kind of like how I used to be. Like I'd ask people for advice or dump a bunch of stuff on someone, but then just not take their advice. And that's kind of like what definitely jiu-jitsu helped me with a lot. Like lately, just to give an example, probably like only like 2 or 3 people know this, but like 2 days before Christmas, I got laid off my job. And then, you know, I was having some relationship issues or like with a girl. And like I just kept getting like, you know, 2021 just kept kicking me, you know. But yeah, I just kind of like learned to just, you know, deal with it how I'm supposed to. Because like mentally, like I know what I should be doing in these situations. Like when I got laid off, thankfully, you know, I had all these resumes ready. I had my credentials. I sent out a ton of, you know, job applications. Luckily, the people I was working with, I was contracted under, they offered me like a temp position, but it wouldn't be for a while. State government stuff takes a while. But yeah, and like just things like that. That's what jiu-jitsu's helped me with, deal stuff with like that a lot. And kind of like what me and Justin were talking about one day, like, you know, we kind of both know what it feels like to be down. So we're constantly like trying to be funny when, because, you know, you just don't want people feeling the way we do sometimes, you know? So, and then jiu-jitsu is that outlet for us personally, so we can recharge our batteries and deal with our own issues to help other people. Just my 2 cents, you know.
Certainly not the first person to say this either. Like this is the, you know, everybody has echoed this in some form or another that's done jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is a way of like, you find out that all that other stuff really isn't that important.
Right, exactly.
Like a lot of times we'll hang on to stuff that, and I got to let that go. You know, the guy that cut me off in the parking lot, and the guy that
that, you know, he didn't say thank you when they held the door.
Yeah.
And then all of those things can compound on us. We can let them be bigger than what they are. And then that stuff can start affecting our personal relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was so worried about all the small stuff that happened throughout my day, then I could take that home and I end up dumping that on my wife when she wasn't the person who I was pissed at to begin with. Yeah. And jiu-jitsu, for me, it's a great, I say it's an exhale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because all day long, all the stuff that's been bothering me, I've been holding it in. I've been holding all that in, and then I go to jiu-jitsu, and now I can exhale. I can breathe. I let it all out, and all that stuff that was bothering me isn't bothering me.
Oh yeah.
It kind of brings us back to the mental health aspect of jiu-jitsu. Is like, for me, just in general, like, yeah, like I want to make sure that I'm doing good money-wise. I want to make sure that, you know, kids are happy and the wives happy, and for the most part, we all are. But like all this little stuff, I've got to let that go, because in the grand scheme of life, it's not as bad as getting choked.
Yeah.
Well, jiu-jitsu helped me from throwing a crackhead on her head the other day, like a month ago. I was like, I just got out of class, blocked my parking, my actual where I park at my home. And I was like, what is going on? I couldn't find out whose car it was. It's like, man, I really don't want to call the cops. I don't know who this is. Call the cops. They're like, hey, do you care to move? She's like, oh, it's fine. And then she just ran up and tried to push me. I will say try. And I was like, I just got out of class. You know, I was like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? Just leave. Like, I feel like if I didn't get out of class, if I was just having a real bad day, you know, I probably would have just been like, but I was like, that's just ridiculous. Just leave, please. Just go. I don't want to hurt you. Just go on, do your own thing. I don't care if you push me, whatever. Go away. I feel like if I didn't have that little bit of, I can really hurt you with jiu-jitsu, but I'm not going to. Like, just go. I probably would have did something else, but I'm glad I didn't. And I probably wouldn't have got out of class and I was having a rough day, you know, but everything was cool. They've left me alone since. So definitely a lot of self-control with training every day that a lot of people don't understand, I feel like.
Many podcasts we listen to, all of us, right, where they talk about that.
You're a little low, Butch, on my screen. I don't know if you are on the others.
Yeah. No, I'll move up. But I mean, many podcasts we think of where they talk about that, and that's part of the thing where same thing, exact same thing. Somebody can cut me off on the road on Tuesday morning, and I'll chase them down, and this has happened, right? And I want to kill them. Tuesday evening after jiu-jitsu, somebody cuts me off, and I'm like, and they give me the finger on top of that, and I'm like, don't worry about it. You know, today's your whatever I'm thinking. It's just a different subject, right? So the point is, that's one of our coping mechanisms, whether that's the endorphin release, whether that's the being with our friends, whatever it is, the workout, you know, just exhausting ourselves to where the we don't need to do that, or the fact that we know where we stand, right? Like, I think a lot of fights happen because everybody's trying to prove themselves, right? Like, you go in a room, they go in a room, they see a bunch of guys, and you want to be the toughest guy in the room, and you're like, I'm bigger than that guy, and then all of a sudden you're just a douchebag, right? Where we go most of the time in a room, and it's the opposite. You
remember when we were moving mats, and that one guy like stopped in front of us and beeped at us and flipped us off, and it was like me, you, James, and Danny, and somebody else in the car. And Danny was like, that guy has no idea. I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what his problem is.
Well, that's the point. Yeah. So, you know, we laughed it off, right? Where if we're just 18-year-old men with a bunch of testosterone flowing, somebody's going to be like, fuck that guy up. And we're like, yes, you are. And we're all do it, you know, and it's a different thing where I just don't feel that need. I don't even need to feel like I don't have to tell somebody, hey, don't do this because I'm going to kick your, you know what I mean? I'm not even like making that statement. I'm just like, hey, like somebody said, like, I'd whoop your ass. And I'm like, yeah, probably would. But you know, I mean, and that's it. And I don't need to say, well, I would kill you. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's out of my system, right? And again, that's what we're talking about. This is part of the mental health issue. Like, I'm not saying everybody needs to do jiu-jitsu or MMA or kickboxing or any of this, of these combat sports, right? I'm assuming that maybe some people get this out of running. I don't, right? But somebody does, because Ethan, you may be able to speak to that more, the ultra marathon runners and all those guys, but I don't. The whole time I run, I'm like, why the fuck people do this? This is stupid. Like, that's why I don't do it. Like, literally, that's what goes through my head. Where I could say that in jiu-jitsu, I'm like, why do people do this? It's stupid. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm getting choked or my arm's getting broke, right?
Yeah.
And so I got to get myself back together. I can't just walk away. Where in running, that's the thing. It's an individual sport. We're running, I can get tired and I'm like, my knees hurt, my back hurts, I can't breathe. Why don't I just go home? Well, that's a good idea. I'll just go home. Right? And then I'm done. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a little different if one of you guys are trying to beat me up and then I've got to decide, well, I could just go home. And maybe I do. Let's just say worst case scenario. I had a terrible day. I went home. But at some point, I've got to make the decision. Am I going to go back and I'm going to get better? Am I going to do something? And then I'll stick with it. That makes me a better person, because that is the part when we said earlier, when we're talking about John Marshall, our friends and stuff, that's the part when they say that's real life, because it's like, got my ass kicked today, whether it's at work or whatever. And then what do? Do I come back? And am I going to be a better person? What am I going to learn from this? What am I going to do? But anyway, what's your thoughts on that, Ethan? Anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, with running, like, for me, I don't know, it was just, I guess I just kind of want to like mimic, like, so like with jiu-jitsu, like I did this because of Jocko. Well, running was because of David Goggins. You know, he runs like 200,000 miles a year or whatever. Yeah. And so I was like, well, that's cool. If, you know, I got into jiu-jitsu because of Jocko, then surely I can get into running because of David Goggins. I just want to start, like, you know, doing things to challenge me more, because, you know, I started doing jiu-jitsu. I was like, okay, well, I'm, you know, for the most part, you know, I've become a different person because of jiu-jitsu. I'm more resilient mentally. I'm more open to like taking myself out of my comfort zone. So, like, you know, I took that solo trip to Utah all by myself. That was a blast. But going back to running, it's like, you know, I wanted to be able to say, like, yeah, I ran a 50K. Not many people can say they ran a 50K, like 32 miles or whatever. Yeah, it was just something different. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it because of COVID. They canceled the race, but yeah, I'd like to eventually actually run a 50K. It's just
brutal.
It is brutal. Yeah,
way out.
It'll tear the first like month. It'll tear your feet up. Like the bottom of my feet were just blistered to hell. It was awful, especially doing that and then doing jiu-jitsu. Like the blisters would just rip off. And then John Marshall made me run up a mountain in Canal State Forest, and you can't keep up with that man. He'll just like do a steady pace the whole time, and you'll gas out. It's
after like 1 mile, I'm like, man, my balls hurt. I'm done.
Yeah, because I told him that, because like the first time I ran with him because he was helping me train. I tried keeping up with him because like he wasn't like sprinting. It was just like a steady run, and like 2 miles in, like he was just like miles ahead of me doing that same pace, and I was like back here gassed out. And he told me, he's like, you know, run your own race, you know, this is your thing, do it at your own pace. I was like, okay. And then eventually I got a lot better. It's all about just pacing yourself, really. Can't be too excited about it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Does that do as much for you as training at the gym does, or what was your thoughts on that one?
No, by far, jiu-jitsu's, you know, top of the training list. Running is just a nice supplement. Yeah. It you know, it's helped build my cardio up a little bit. Even like a little bit with the mental toughness, because like you know, I'd run without headphones, and even going to the gym now, I don't really take headphones anymore, just to add the extra suck, I guess.
Like you against yourself more than jiu-jitsu, right? It's like you.
Yeah, it's you fighting yourself, sort of like, I don't know, they say that with yoga too. It's like a martial art.
I never heard that.
Oh, you never heard that? Joe Rogan said. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, he says like yoga is like a martial art against yourself. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was Joe Rogan. But anyway, yeah, it's just like because like you get to like mile like 10, you want to quit because it's like I'm beat, I don't want to go anymore. But then it's like, well, I'll just go one more mile. I was like, I'll go one more mile, and then eventually it just stacks up to like I ran like 20 miles.
It's brutal, man.
So guys, we've made it almost 2 hours.
Oh wow.
It's 11 o'clock.
Woo! I gotta be
time flies. Joe Rogan doesn't lie about this place being a time warp. I was going to say, just kind of wrapping things up. And I think the general consensus is that jiu-jitsu makes us better people. I think that's always the outcome that we find out. But also, like the importance of definitely the importance of having people in our lives, whether it be relationships we make in jiu-jitsu or me being an extrovert, just having people there in general. I think it is definitely important that we get the physical side of it. For me and Butch, who don't like any other kind of exercise, just want to go roll all the time. So anybody have anything else to add to that, or as in like a summary?
Totally random. Timberlake was dissing my gear I have on right now. I guess you used to be wearing fancy stuff. It's my pajama wear. I just wear white. It's pajamas. I don't have any broken hearts or anything shiny. I'm sorry, but that's what I got. Sorry, Timberlake. I apologize.
I would
That's
say
it.
that was a good comment, Justin. I would say, look, you're talking to 4 guys that like jiu-jitsu or combat martial arts. Some of us do other things, but I would suggest that this is just me talking, but I would suggest somebody find something they're passionate about, whatever that is, and it's important to them, right? I think that's why we talked about people having hobbies. I have friends that fish, and they love fishing, right? I don't get it. I can enjoy it for a little bit. I just don't have the passion they have. But I enjoy watching people have the passion. Like, for example, I don't hunt either. We're in West Virginia. A lot of people hunt. It used to annoy me, but I actually like meaning that I like to hear people now, because I just like to hear how I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm really happy for you. You know what I'm saying? Like they'll show me a picture of a deer that they killed. I'm like, it looks like every other deer I ever saw, but you look really happy, so that's good. It's like I couldn't pick your deer out of a lineup of other deer, but whatever. So the same thing, like we push jiu-jitsu because that's what we do. We love it. We found something that makes us a complete person, maybe takes the edge off, right? And just does something for us. But for other people, just like Ethan mentioned, like David Goggins, he found that in running. Other people found that in hunting or fishing or, volleyball or whatever. I guess the point is, I think what we learned in this pandemic is find something you're passionate about, something you can relate with people, something that you can express yourself with. I think that's the other thing that we kind of forget about is that, somebody like an artist, painter, expresses herself by putting paint on a piece of paper, and they do all these things. Our art is our jiu-jitsu, and our art is strangling each other and doing beautiful things with our body. And there's something great about that. I mean, not everybody gets it. We joke about it. We say things that are, inappropriate just to be funny. But it is what makes us us, right? It's how we express ourselves. And I find a lot of joy in that. There's nothing that I can do that expresses myself more. My wife's came to jiu-jitsu class and seen me roll and was like, wow, like you're like, I think I understand you now, right? And I bet you guys have the similar situation with whether it's your wife or your friends, or if they saw you do what you truly love, they would, like I said, it doesn't have to be a girlfriend, wife, it could be a friend. They're like, man, I think I understand you now. Like, this is what you love, and you're a different person when you're doing that. We're lucky that we found that, and we're lucky that actually really even the pandemic, because we probably took this stuff for granted. And it's made us appreciate things more. I will tell you this, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was miserable. So was everybody else. At the end of it, I'm one of the lucky people that can say I'm kind of glad it happened because I understand my friends more. I understand myself more. I'm thankful that we're doing this podcast talking about this, and that I can say that you guys are truly my friends for life, and that I understand you guys more, understand myself more.
Just talking actually helped.
Absolutely, and I'm thankful for you guys. So I guess that's what I would finish with. I don't have a great thing about mental health. I just know that this helps me and this helps my friends. So find the things that make you happy and healthy, and that you have a kinship with people. Whether we're joking about yoga and all that stuff, but there's all kinds of things out there that can do that for you. So I will say this, that I thank you for being my friends. Right. Thank you. Thank you for making me a better person on the mat, off the mat, on Zoom calls, everything. Without you, I'm not who I am. So thank you for all those things. So that's it for me.
We talking about the tournaments and stuff coming up, Gary, or?
Yeah, well, and I was just going to say, don't forget anyone who's watching live that April 3rd is WVGO in Charleston. It's still not too late to register for that, is it, Butch? I don't think so.
No, I'll just be honest. I always say 4/1 is the last day. I let people register for a while because it saves you money. Why that helps is because we can get brackets done. But look, I'm here. The reason these tournaments happen is because I want people to compete for a cheap price as much as they can in a friendly environment. And quite honestly, I am more friendly to people that don't go to my gyms and that also are not my friend than I am with people. I don't know if you guys can attest to that, but if you're my friend, most likely I'm going to stick you in every fucking match that there is.
I 100% know about that.
So that's why I always laugh when a person from another gym will say like, hey, those guys, because they have a different gyms, they screwed me. I'm like, you don't even know. Because
I remember Butch being like,
way worse.
This guy's got 60 pounds on you, but I run ahead and signed you up against him. I know you did 3 other matches, but you got another one coming up. And I'll be like, what?
Absolutely. So
it's definitely harder on us. And then we pick the mats up after the fact, which is even harder.
We work before, we work after, we do everything we can. So there couldn't be a friendlier environment. If people complain, if they say that their match got screwed, if they blah, 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 I'll say, just do it again. Right. Like
now I'm like,
I'll
fight anybody. I sent you the message before my stomach got all messed up. And, I know Gary's asked me a couple super fights, but I'm like, my stomach wasn't jacked up the last 4 weeks because of this cut thing. Then they gave me bad antibiotics or whatever. It's been a problem the last 4 weeks. But usually, I don't care what weight you are, from 140 pounds to 280. I'll go. I'm game. Just because Butch threw me in there with all of them before, it doesn't matter. I'm down. But
as of right now, we do have 5. I believe it's 5 super fights. So it'll be good. Hopefully we can have the stream on there as well, so everybody will get to see the matches. Going to try and set up a couple cameras, so hopefully we can have a couple mats that'll have matches going the whole time. That'll be great. And then Dean Lister is going to be there on the 4th. So make sure if you want to learn from the guy who basically, we had the podcast before the Butch put up, but the guy who kind of is responsible for leg locks in general. He's going to be there in Charleston over at Butch Hiles. And so get in there. It's $75 to compete or $75 to go to the Dean Lister seminar. You can do both still for $100, right, Butch?
Yeah, save $50. So yeah, can't go wrong.
If any super fights cancel, I'm not in shape right now, but if any of the super fights cancel, I will come from the announce desk and jump in if such a thing happens. All
right. Sounds good. Well, guys, thanks for joining us. And we'll go ahead and
appreciate it.
Call this quits.